Fine. The next time we have it in the lunchroom. Okay? The dressing scraps. If you have it, sorry, I was looking if I remember.
salon, is it?
He's on, yeah. The other, it's facing the other way.
So they'll let it come through us.
A good Yom Tes, wherever I go inside. Everybody please take a seat because there are plenty of seats. Baruch Hashem. Firstly, Bruchim Aboyim B'Shem Hashem and a good Yom Tes. Say L'chaim. And mention also that which is being disseminated about the special opportunity of Yud Tes Kislev. And the Alter Rebbe said that those bakoshes that you ask on this Yom Tes, he made it like Yom Kippur, that the bakoshes, the requests which are asked, should be received and accepted and answered by the Eibusher. So L'chaim, the Eibusher should fulfill everybody's heart's desires for good. The Toiv, HaNidav, HaNigle, the good and revealed way, L'matim HaSonot Tfachim, down on this earth. And it should be also, of course, the ultimate Geula, Chag HaGeula, HaMitis VaHashleima. The Rebbe said then in Tavshin Nun Aleph, Ve'ei Anoichi Noisen B'Fnechem HaYoyim Bracha, the Bracha of Geula, HaMitis VaHashleima. Chaim. Peiskin in Tvar Malchus, a word from the Rebbe, and Peiskin in Bracha. That is the Nusach HaMivrak, the text that the Rebbe sent to Anash all over the world in honor of the Chag HaGeula of Yud Tes Kislev Farbrengen. Just also would like to inform that there will be a hafsaka interruption for Ma'ariv, approximately 9 o'clock, and then we will continue with the Farbrengen of the program. We have a number of speakers. We have also a video to show, a new video, and to launch an aspect of a program of Mivtzoyim, and we will continue to Farbrengen. So this is the text of the Rebbe's telegram from Tavshin Nun Beis. Baruch Hashem Yud Zayin Lekislev Hey Tavshin Nun Beis. Yud Zayin we know is the Gematria Toiv. So B'Toiv Lekislev Hemsheich Haichai Yud Tes Kislev L'Shona Toiva B'Limud HaChasidus V'Darkei HaChasidus Tikoseimu V'Seichoseimu. The bracha which is expressed in regards to Rosh Hashanah L'Chasidus, Yud Tes Kislev being the Rosh Hashanah for Chasidus, so there should be the Shana Toiva in learning Chasidus and in the ways of Chasidus, which should all be inscribed and sealed. Koilel P'ilois Rabbeis B'chol HaMivtzoyim U'Bichlal B'Torah U'B'Gimilas Chasodim U'Batfila, which includes all activities, or many activities in all of the Mivtzoyim, and particularly Bichlal in Torah and Gimilas Chasodim, acts of Chasodim and Tefillah, Ubimyuchad Shashana Yud Tes Kislev Ubiyam Gimel Shuchma Ve'Kitayv Teiv Lashamayim the Teiv Lavriyos, which is as it is this year Yud Tes Kislev. It was on Tuesday. Tuesday is the day when Kitayv is doubled, mentioned twice in the Parasha of Bereishis, which alludes to Toiv, Lashamayim, Toiv, to heaven, aspects of Avodas Hashem in regards to Bein Odom, Lamokim, between man and Hashem, with the Toiv Lavriyos, and good to the creations, Bein Odom V'Chaveirei. B'chol Zeh, B'Oifen Du Uforatzto Yoma V'Keima V'Tzafona V'Negva V'Geima, all of this in a manner of Uforatzto, spreading out to all directions, west, east, north, and south, etc. And now here the next part of the telegram is also relevant to our year. and a special emphasis in all of the above in a year which is a leap year. Torah calls it a complete year. Rebbe then said that the Hey Tavshin Nun Beis alludes to in its Rosh Tevis Hoyo Tehei Shnas Niflois Bakoil Mikoil Koil. It should be a year of wonders in all things. Bakoil Mikoil Koil. V'yoyim Zeh Limei Limei Hachona Lechaneke. And from this day of Yud Tes Kislev should be to the days of Hachon and to preparation of Chanukah and Chanukah itself. Shein Yomnam Teichnam the Neistim Koyach Lahadli Kol Echad Ve'echad Al Pesach HaBayis Ne'er Mitzvah Ve'oyer HaTorah. That their Inyan and their theme gives Koyach to each and every one to be able to illuminate the doorway of the house with the light of mitzvah and the light of Torah. And to add each and every day on one's doorway. And to also illuminate the outside and also throughout the year. And to be successful in all the above. The Rebbe concludes this telegram with a pasuk of Tehillim, which was of that year in Tavshin Nun Beis. Yud Tes Kislev was the 90th year of the Rebbe, just before Yud Aleph Nisan Tavshin Nun Beis, when the Rebbe became 90 years old. So it was Kapitel Tzadik. Gam L'maya Kim Tfilas U'Birchas Moshe Rabbeinu Al Kol Echad Ve'echad B'nei Yisrael Shlita B'Ziyim V'Chayis V'Mizmeh Tzadik Sheb'Seivin in Midas Yisrael David Malka Mashiach. And these are days, meritorious days for the fulfillment of the bracha of Moshe Rabbeinu, which is at the end of the 90th chapter of Tehillim, which we are all familiar with. V'hi Noyam Hashem Elokeinu Aleinu Amasi Yodeinu Keinu Aleinu Yehi Ratzain Shetisha Shchir B'Masi Yodechem. May it be the will of Hashem that the Shekhinah should rest on your hands, on the work of your hands. U'Masei Yodeinu Keinineu Yehi Ratzain B'Maiseh Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi B'Mheira B'Yomeinu B'Gulo HaMitzvah V'Hashlem Al Yidei Mashiach Tzidkeinu. Take care from B'Yad Mamish B'Chaved B'Bracha the Rebbe's Chesimet. I'd like to now call Rav Nachum Mendel for a Chaim Shalom Deg Ben Lipske, as we have two Nachum Mendel Lipskes here in town. Come and say, V'Inyonei D'Yoyme.
He took your chair.
Why?
What? Why? Because he wanted the chair. Chaim, Yomtev, Shana Teva, Limud Achsidus, Darki Achsidus, Chesed, Chesed. In the Chassidische dictionary, the lexicon of Chassidische terminology, we know that there is a concept called maskilim and there's a concept called oivdim. There were those Chassidim that delved very, very deeply into the deep inyanim of Chassidus. That was their main focus. There were those Chassidim that were called oivdim. Literally, oivig means one who serves the Eibishter, of course. These were Chassidim, whether they davened barichas for many, many hours, worked on their midos, or primarily just taking every inyan in Chassidus and trying to see, b'poil mamish, how do we apply it in our gashmiistic lives, in our avodas Hashem. By way of example, in quite a number of places in the Frierdiker Rebbe Sichos and letters, there are the two famous Chassidim, Reb Hillel Paritcher and Reb Isaac Homler. both very, very great Chassidim, the times starting the Alter Rebbe, the Mittler Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek. And again, just by way of example, the Frierdiker Rebbe relates in one particular letter, or Sicha, the Frierdiker Rebbe relates how the Tzemach Tzedek would say Maimorim, and then after he would say these Maimorim in public, he would sometimes afterwards say another biur on the Maimer for a few select individuals. This was something that the Alter Rebbe did as well, but the Tzemach Tzedek did this. In addition to the Maimer, how he said it in public, he would say it over afterwards to select individuals. And these included, of course, the Bnei Tzemach Tzedek, his own children, and maybe a few of the great Chassidim. Amongst them was Reb Isaac and Reb Hillel. The Tzemach Tzedek would tell the Rebbe Maharash that he should go and listen how Reb Isaac and Reb Hillel say over the Maimorim, how they chazer the Maimorim, each one in their own style. And then he should come back and report to the Tzemach Tzedek. The Tzemach Tzedek would like to hear how each one of these Chassidim, what the message, or how he chazer the Maimer, or what he took from the Maimer was. And when the Rebbe Maharash came back to the Tzemach Tzedek and repeated how Reb Hillel said the Maimer and how Reb Isaac said the Maimer, the Tzemach Tzedek said, this is the way a Ovid chazers the Maimer, and this is a maskil. These are two different worlds, each one with a different perspective, each one with a different attitude. When the Rebbe Maharash asked the Tzemach Tzedek, what is the difference between a maskil and an Ovid, he didn't answer him immediately, but approximately a week later, this is somewhere in the middle of the night, 3 or 4 a.m., the Tzemach Tzedek calls the Rebbe Maharash, and he says, I want you to go and to the places where each Reb Isaac and Reb Hillel stay. They stayed in 2 different places. I want you to go and go see what they're doing right now. So the Rebbe Maharash goes, and the Rebbe Maharash, through the window, the Tzemach Tzedek told him he should do it in a discreet way. The Rebbe Maharash goes, and he observes how Reb Isaac is in his own way standing very, very deep in thought, with his face all aflame, deep in thought, pacing back and forth, and obviously in the middle of a very, very great and deep hisbonenus. And then upon coming to Reb Hillel, he saw something, I guess, quite similar, slightly different. Reb Hillel sitting there, his face very, very pale, and all bent over, and also deep in thought, deep in concentration. And when he came back and reported to the Tzemach Tzedek said that that's the difference between a maskil and an oived. Both Reb Isaac and Reb Hillel are both meditating upon the Maimer that was just said this last Shabbos. But Reb Isaac is focusing and meditating upon the various high dargos within Keser that were discussed, Gimel Russian, whatever, not relevant right this second, but high dargos in Keser that were discussed. And whereas Rabbi Hillel is focusing on the bitul of the sphere of Malchus and how it applies to him and what kind of Kabbalah's oil it demands of him, etc., etc. One is a maskil, one is an oived. I'm mentioning all of this again, that was just by way of example. The Rebbe in a Yud Tes Kislev Farbrengen relates the following that happened by the Alter Rebbe on a Yud Tes Kislev. And what the Tzemach Tzedek related this, that on one particular Yud Tes Kislev, which he said was a very freiliche Yud Tes Kislev, a lot of guests had come and so on. But at some point during this Yud Tes Kislev celebration, the Alter Rebbe turned to his 3 sons, the Mittler Rebbe, the Reb Chaim Avraham, and Reb Moshe, 3 sons who were all 3 mentioned in this morning's Chitas, or today's Chitas in Tanya, of course, the Haskama of the sons of the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe turned to all three of them, and the Tzemach Tzedek was there at the time, and he related this. And the Tzemach Tzedek said, the Alter Rebbe asked them, what is the difference between a maskil and an oivid? And each one of the sons gave their own interpretation. And the Alter Rebbe said that these interpretations each fit very, very well with one of the three worlds of Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya. But then the Alter Rebbe said, but what is the difference between a maskil and an oived in the world of Atzilus? And the Alter Rebbe himself went on and explained. And what the Alter Rebbe said was that a maskil is one who has a deep appreciation for a tzitzah, the mitzvah of tzitzis, for all the lofty concept of what tzitzis are all about. And an oived is one who has a geschmack in ton atoive ayidin. That's what the oived is all about. So sometimes we fly to very, very high and great levels, whether in Haskalah or sometimes maybe in Avodah, also deep, 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 high and great levels. But what the Alter Rebbe says that the ultimate of Avodah, real Avodah, is all about to go ahead and ton atoive zu ayidin, to push it, go out there and do a favor to another Jew. And in an interesting way, the Rebbe connects this with a practice that we do on Yud Tes Kislev, when we say L'shana Toiva, Tikoseva v'Sechoseva, L'shana Toiva b'limud Achsidus v'darki Achsidus, Tikoseva v'Sechoseva. But the Rebbe connects this with what happens on Rosh Hashanah on Aleph Tishrei. The Rebbe says we finish davening on the night of Rosh Hashanah, and for most Jews it's a very, very, very serious time. By the Rabbeim specifically, we saw a very strong merirus, a strong zebrochenkeit on the night of Rosh Hashanah. Kabbalah Samalchus, very, very deep and great things going on. I remember Rabbi Grover Olam HaSholem many times describing the bechiyas, the crying of the Frierdiker Rebbe that he witnessed on the night of Rosh Hashanah. Says the Rebbe, and yet what happens right when we finish all of that davening on Rosh Hashanah? The first thing we do is we turn around to the Yid next to us and we wish them a good Yom Tov, L'shana Toiva, Tikoseva, V'Sechoseva. In other words, the bottom line from all of the great Haskalos and everything else is Pasha to go out there and Tana Toiva Tzenoch HaYidin. In other places, the Rebbe also brings, in one particular Farbrengen the Rebbe brings, when the Alter Rebbe came out of prison, and we know that that was already close to nighttime, and then he spent the next 3 hours in the house of someone that was actually very involved in the opposition, what we would call Misnagid, who was for 3 hours cursing out the Alter Rebbe, cursing out Chassidus, and so on and so forth. And towards the end, when the Alter Rebbe was already coming and being rescued by his Chassidim, so this man said to the Alter Rebbe, you know, I prepared a cup of tea for you. Won't you have a cup of tea? And the Alter Rebbe said, Kavod Achsanya, of course we have to give honor to the place where we stayed. And the Alter Rebbe stayed to have a cup of tea. And in a fascinating way, the Rebbe goes on to explain the tremendous amount of what the Rebbe calls Pashat Kavod, respect, Avas Yisrael, Toiv Lebrius, that's what the Rebbe calls it. There's Toiv L'Shamayim and Toiv Lebrius. The tremendous goodskeit that the Alter Rebbe was showing over here, when here is a person that's Mamash L'Choir is so far and so against and so on, and yet what the Alter Rebbe shows over here is the care that we have to have for another Yid and the respect that we have to have for another Yid. In the very, very famous letter of the Rebbe Rashab, that's right in the beginning of Hayoim Yoim, which is quoted so many times in different sichos, there are those famous words that the Rebbe Rashab writes regarding Yud Tes Kislev, that is the day that Oir v'chayus nafsheinu nitan lonu, the day that the light, the Oir, and chayus, nafsheinu is nitan lonu, the energy, the varmkeit, and so on. There are different explanations on what those two terms mean. But in one particular letter of the Frierdiker Rebbe, a very geschmacka letter that the Frierdiker Rebbe published in honor of Yud Tes Kislev, The Frierdiker Rebbe speaks over there again about this and the importance of the points we mentioned before about the Haskalah of Chassidus, the deep understanding of Chassidus. We think about Hashem Echad. We think about it the way the Eibishter is the only reality. We think about the beauty of a Yid's neshama and so on. And the Frierdiker Rebbe then goes on to speak about how it has to lead to avodah in our midos toivos, in our avas Yisrael, and so on. And after elaborating about that for several paragraphs, he finishes off with one line. He says, and that's the pshat, Oir v'chayis nafsheinu nitan lanu. Oir and chayis nafsheinu, this is the haskalah of Chassidus and the avodah of Chassidus. He doesn't elaborate, but l'chayir is simply what this means is, we learn the concepts of Chassidus, and it's oir, it illuminates, it shows us the right way, it gives us the right perspectives on the world, on the way we view ourselves, our connection to the Eibishter, and so on. But the most important thing is that the oir also leads to chayas, to a varimkeit, to a mitzvah, to a varimkeit in tana yidin atoiva, to a varimkeit in helping out another person, and that's the bottom line what Chassidus is all about, not only for the Haskalah, but also for the Avodah. So the Eibishter is all helping. We should all be illuminated both with the oir of Chassidus and with the chayas of Chassidus. And from this Chag HaGeula, we should go to the Gula Amitis Vashleim and take it from Yad Ma'am.
We are going to now make our soccer for Ma'ariv, and we will continue right after Ma'ariv.
What? He was
I will be, I don't know what time, but it will be not before 9:30. No problem, it's okay. Not being careful.
Sorry, I knocked the video.
We are going to continue with the program now. Please. We're going to continue with the program now. As I mentioned before, please, Rabbi Sai and Bachrim and children, it is wonderful that everybody comes here to Farbrengen, but please, we also ask that young children should be with their parents. Also announcing that the Chalukas Hashas, as every year, is being circulated around the tables on a clipboard. Please participate. A video is going to be shown now. It's in order to launch a particular program, but it's associated. The purpose why the video was made will be explained very shortly. It's associated with Mivtza Tefillin, a certain aspect of Mivtza Tefillin. In Vashgocha Pratis, I found today a Sikha where the Rebbe connects the mitzvah of Tefillin with Yud Tes Kislev and Tanya very strongly, which we'll leave for later. Now I'll ask Rabbi Mendy Eisenschmidt to introduce this particular video.
So this is a special video. Many of you saw the preview on Gimel Tammuz. It's called Armed and Fortified, something like that. It's a video about the Tefillin campaign that the Rebbe launched in 1967 for the Six-Day War. JAM have made this video available to the Melbourne community, to the Australian Jewish community, in honor of the launching of this special campaign that we're starting here. This has never been seen before in the full length publicly, so this is something special for bringing tonight. And the Tefillin Bank, which we're launching today, is a joint project of Chabad Youth and Chabad Campus, together with the Shluchim office in New York, which is supported by the Ichikowitz International Tefillin Bank, and in Australia, it is generously sponsored by Robin and Josh Goldhirsch.
guys work hard. Every Friday they come, same time. Very persistent. They come to Leisvillen and share the love and the word of the great Jews of this world.
Nobody had ever really done this before. A word like outreach. Everyone thinks that's been a part of the Jewish vocabulary since the days of Abraham. After all, Abraham engaged in outreach. But the truth is, the Rebbe was the first Jewish leader ever, at least since post-biblical times, who considered and constructed an active program of outreach to all Jews. In the 13th century, Rabbi Moses of Coucy went out in France and encouraged Jews who weren't wearing tefillin or weren't putting mezuzahs on their doors, and he did a sort of outreach campaign, but that's one rabbi in the 13th century and in a very limited way. So it was really hard to find a precedent for somebody who did this in a systematic way.
Also rumgefahren mit Dinas Fahr und dieses andere Musik für Medina. Gefahren nach Medina, was jeden Tag nicht übergekriegt. Und er sah hin, nach links gefahren, nach links gerät. Und wenn du Wasser gerät, war jeden sich ein Lieden Hektar gekriegt. Das hat Nager dort erzählt, was er dort erzählt. Also wissen da, wie glaube ich viel. Und mit den Tagen habe ich dort und die was wirklich vernünftig. Also dringend noch viel. Nur das auch kein Wäsche. Also es gab Kapsel, man nicht viel. Überlegt 91 Mal viel. Nannten mal es von dem Süd, der Kapsel, man nicht viel. Das schaut mal an in dem Süd, von man nicht viel. Ich habe noch in die Mistrischen gerissen.
Steps to meet all eventualities. These steps include a limited
נוסף היו העתודה של מפקד חיל האוויר המצרי והועמדו לרשות פיקוד האוויר המזרחי.
ריכוזי הכוחות המצריים בסיני הגיעו לממדים המגבירים מתיחות באזור.
ערב המלחמה במדינת ישראל, אני זוכר אותה כתקופה מפחידה מבחינת הציבור פחד. אלה היו הימים שממשלת ישראל בראשותו של לוי אשכול ניסתה למנוע את המלחמה. אבל מצד שני היה ברור לה שאם צבא מצרים מתקדם בסיני, המלחמה בדרך.
Military spokesman announced this evening that following the entry of a large number of Egyptian troops to eastern Sinai and following the withdrawal of the United Nations emergency forces at the request of Egypt,
the armies of Syria and Jordan, bristling with weapons and with aid promised by Iraq, Algeria, Kuwait and other hands.
הרגישו חנק, הרגישו מחנק. נאצר במערכת התעמולה שלו, השידורים שיצאו ממצרים, השידורים שיצאו מסוריה, היו שידורים מאוד מתלהמים.
فاحزموا حقائبكم واهربوا من فلسطين قبل أن نأتيكم بالموت.
הציבור אגר מזון, הוא לא ידע לאן כל זה הולך. אולי שואה חדשה באה. אז ל"ג בעומר, מארצות הברית, היה מצעד גדול מול 770, והרבי יצא לדבר מול הצועדים.
Meine Brüder und Schwestern, was geschehen sich in Eretz Akedesh in Eretz Israel, stehen nicht in Asam im Lager, wo der Oberste beschützt sie und schickt sie seine Brüche und Atzloche und Yeshua. in a vergrößerter Los. Gedei sie sollen nach Riss kommen und sie wollen nach Riss kommen. Von dem איצ'טקי מסו mit הצלחה.
בזמנו נשא אז לוי אשכול נאום שעד היום נקרא נאום הגמגום, שהוא לא ידע אפילו פשוט מה לומר לעם, ומול הגמגומים בא דמות כמו הרבים, גישה חדה, ברורה, עם הסמכותיות שלו, שבא ואומר, לא הולכת להיות שואה אחרת, תהיה תשועה.
וישבתם לבטר ביחציכם, אז ich bin in Eretz Yisrael, wir sind dort sicher, und jeder von euch und mir alle zusammen, und bin Juchel die Jeden in Eretz Agdesha, wollen sein dem obersten Volk, was Eretz Aris finden, bin jeder Amroya, Absuche, Agdesha und Archova, von allen Schwierigkeiten.
Now the war is coming. I-67 shot Chivu. You have 2 notices from the American embassy. War is imminent. Transportation will not be provided. No responsibility will be taken. Leave the country immediately. We have 2 Americans, 1 Canadian, 1 Brit. So read the telegram, all 4 of us. What should we do? Should we stay or should we leave?
So this letter, what we sent, was before like Be'ema. I remember I went with Shmulek Yerodel to the post office to send the telegram to the Rebbe. The Lashon was Eichlis Nayik Leira Matzav.
What's going behind the scenes is that American yeshiva boys were clogging the airport trying to leave the country. And it was very good for the morale of the country. And the Rebbe knew that. And that's why his telegram to us was printed in Daf Rishon of newspaper. And the telegram read as follows. ימשיכו בהתמדה ובשקידה, ובוודאי לא ינום ולא ישן שומר ישראל, ויבסו טוב. I had friends in the Mir, and I told them that I was telegram. So they asked him, Chaim Shmulevitz in the Mir, should we stay or should we go? He said, that's not a question for me. I'm not taking responsibility for your lives. And they said, our friend in Chabad, the Chabad's Rebbe took responsibility for him. He said, don't move. He said the Lubavitcher Rebbe had bring the places. He just took responsibility for thousands of lives.
Yeshiva was about 200 feet from the border. Across the street, they would read the barbed wire and draw it. So the government asked if we can help for the war effort. They asked if we should go help with trenches next to the border. A lot of trucks came with sand. They dumped it on the corners of the streets. So everybody can go and fill up the sacks with sand, put it on the windows. So when the bombs fall, the shrapnel shouldn't break the glass and go into the houses. After the yeshiva, there was one more building. It was Masada Chinuch, a very big, strong building over there. And they shared a backyard with the yeshiva. And in there, in that backyard, the soldiers set up the mortars to shoot across the border. So they were there a few days before the war started. They were just setting up the things with the bombs and everything to get ready. So they gave all of us rifles and submachine guns. And everybody got an Uzi. They taught us how to take it apart and put it together. If they break through, you just stand by the window and you just shoot anything that moves outside. Just keep raking the street with the bullets.
I recall Shabbos before the war erupted, Parshat Bamidbar, the Rebbe spoke by the Farbrengen that the commandment of Tefillin brings about God's blessing to protect the Jewish people from dangers around them and to bring long life to the Jewish people. Therefore, the Rebbe asked in these tense days, everyone should try to put on Tefillin with as many Jewish people as possible. Our sages tell us on the passage of the Torah that says that all the nations of the world will see that the name of God is called upon you and they will fear you. The sages ask, where do we see that the name of God is called upon you? The answer, this is the Tefillin Shel Rosh.
אז הרבי דיבר שכשיוצאים למלחמה, על שום נושא שהאויב נסבק לגמרי, וגם כי יש את העניין של נפקד ממנו איש. אחד הדברים מסוגלים מאוד לדבר הזה, אז יש את העניין של התפילין. אז הוא ביקש שיניחו עם חיילים תפילין, שזה יהיה ההגנה על חייהם, ההגנה על חייהם.
ורוב כולם עוז כי שם השם נקרא לך, המזאת das geht idische Zoll, wo sehr Aufführer ist an die Schemmeleke Azwois. Is hat dämmelt wie Jorum wie Mekka, da schreckt man sich versehen. Wenn Nossel mit Panecha beschäfer trocken, man bleibt versehen. Der Satsche Kenege der Zeh, is Chotscha viele Vasili Chose, is Maslayu Chose, der Zeh es aber sein Magel Shabashomayim und schluckt sich nicht und man bleibt.
אז כמובן שכל אחד עשה ככל יכולתו, וזה לא היה מאורגן, אלא כל אחד מצא תפילין, לא ידענו על המצעד הזה בכלל לפני כן, לא היה דבר כזה.
מבצע מוקד החל באותו בוקר שהיה ברור סופית שהולכת להיות מלחמה. מתכנסת הממשלה ובעצם מקדמת את פני הרעה. יוצאים המטוסים למתקפה של מבצע מוקד, פוגעים ב-430 מטוסים מצריים בסיני ובתוככי מצרים, בירדן, בסוריה. אחרי המתקפה הזאת שנמשכה שעה ו-35 דקות, חילות האוויר של הערבים לא קיימים ומתחילה המערכה. הירדנים מפגיזים את ירושלים.
On Monday morning, when the Jordanians started bombing, the soldier there, the Chatzar, so their commander or their head, whatever, the guy named Yossi was a locksmith from Tel Aviv, told him that the case was on film, he's not going to put on film. So I remember he was saying Krishma or Shmenes, whatever he was davening. All the bombs started flying. The guy didn't budge. He's wearing tefillin, in the middle of davening, let the bombs fly, he's done.
כבר במהלך המערכה ראינו את מבצעי ההנחת התפילין. ברקי וולף אמר לי, נוסעים לסיני, אתה בא? אני נסעתי כי רציתי עוד אולי כתבה מפה, כתבה משם, אבל נסענו לכל מיני מקומות. טנדר מרופט, שאני לא יודע מאיפה נלקח, כן אישורים, לא אישורים, נסענו. פתאום רואים חייל עומד מחכה לטרמפ, הנחת בוקר תפילין, לא. הניחו לו תפילין, תמשיך בהצלחה בדרך.
זה הגיע מתנדגו, בשם העבר לכינו נידגל, בטוגנו וסגוון אומגשרים מיקה מיכה בקנים, הוויה, geht mir nicht mit Shem Hawaii, zusammen wie das sieht, Nikro Lecha durch Anochas Tfil, למעלה שליחוסם הקדש של האגונה, על ביטוחן von ארץ הקניש וביטוחן von גי קודש וגפין sich in ארץ הקניש.
Israel, roughly the size of New Jersey, was surrounded by an Arab world 50 times its size. But in 6 days, the war was over.
It's the first time in 19 years that Jews have been allowed to visit and pray at the site of the sacred Wailing Wall.
הפחד הכניס את מקומו לתחושה של שמחה והרגשת תחושת נס גדול והצלה. המונים באו לכותל, אלפי אנשים. אז פנה אלינו רב שרוי לייבוב, שהוא היה מנהל של ציר אגודס חב"ד, והרב דרש לנצל את האפשרות הזאת להניח עם משהו יותר אנשים תפילים. רב לייבוב בן מברק מהרב, ועכשיו צריך עוד להגביר את מבצע תפילין. הרב לא הוסיף עכשיו, כיוון ששוחרר הכותל המערבי, צריך להקים שם דוכן, בהנחת תפילין לאלה שלא הניחו תפילין במשך היום, באותו דוכן הניחו אותם תפילין. אז לימדו שולחנם בחנתת אבות, מלא והתחילו להניח תפילין.
Tut Alini Schulteil mit Zwisel, darf wissen sein, dass Nebiki sagt. Bald malig wird Ziva, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, wird das Ayini, was darf sein, Adore HaMiskali, bis Apulen im Scherchesatz in Kol HaDev.
זה היה מדהים לראות את זה, אנשים שחזרו למקומם חיות, ממש הכניס בהם רוח חיה.
We'd like to ask Mr. G to share some words about the feeling in Eretz Yisrael at the time of the 6-Day War, and the link to the Tefillin Bank is tefillinbank.com. Anyone that is interested in committing to wearing tefillin, this is for people who have never put tefillin on before. This is a new commitment. They might have done it once a week, but not on a daily basis. This is not for bar mitzvah boys, and it's not for people who have possible tefillin. It's for new commitments. If anyone has a candidate, they can apply on tefillinbank.com.
Bendy, ich bin nicht da.
Watching this video threw me back 50 years. And I lived through all that. Maybe I should say that I had, Baruch Hashem, I had the schus to take part in all that. So during the war, or even before, I wasn't involved in mitzvah film because I was in the army. I did whatever I could in the army itself, but in a very limited way. And so the mitzvah started before, and as the time went on closer to the war, it took it went into a higher gear. And of course, after the war, when the Kaisel was liberated, so that everybody went to the Kaisel. Every single Israeli went to the Kaisel, plus all the tourists. And there were hundreds and thousands of people put on film. After the war, after I was already released in July, August, there was a meeting of Tzira Gurus Chabad organized by the Yisrael label, which was just mentioned in the video, in the office of Tzira Gurus Chabad in Tel Aviv, which is Rehov Harav Kook, number 16. And everybody who had any shaykhs at all came to this meeting. All the Rabbonim and all the Roshei HaMoizdes, the Roshei Yeshiva. I don't remember, even I think that Reb Shneur Gerelik, who was the Rav of Kfar Chabad, he was already a Zokn Muflok, he also, everybody came. The Rav from Petach Tikva, what was his name? Rav Chanzin. And the meeting was to organize, because everybody wanted to do something, and not everybody knew how, so it had to be organized, otherwise it becomes a balagan. Now, before that, I had a chaver, David Golumbovich. His real name was David Morozov. He was an anical, a grandson of Choni Morozov. Choni Morozov was killed by the Russians. His father, David my chaver's father, Pinye, was killed by the Nazis in the war. And David Morozov was a chayal, was a soldier. He was I remember still from Tashkent, we learned together. He had 3 children. He was a tankist. He was a commander of a tank. His wife gave birth to a 3rd child, a little boy, and he was allowed from the army to go to the bris for Shabbos. The bris was on Shabbos, the baby was born on Shabbos. So he had a few days off and he came for Shabbos to the bris. On Sunday, he went back. On the following Shabbos, he got killed with a direct hit from something hit his tank. It was a big tragedy for all of us and all his chaverim and of course for his family. His wife, Shifra Golumbovich, the name Golumbovich was a false name that we assumed when we left Russia. We made false passports, so his real name was Morozov, but everybody knew him as Golumbovich. His wife, Shifra Golumbovich, received a large sum of money from Misrad HaBitachon, from the what's Misrad HaBitachon in English? From Defense Office, as a compensation or as some sort of a pitzui. What did she do with the money? She went and she bought film with all the money. She bought film to distribute, and she was working in Mipsut Film, and the people had so much respect for her. Her husband David served in a unit together with the kibbutz from Givat Brenner. There's a kibbutz Givat Brenner, an old kibbutz from Shemer HaTzoyer, old leftist kibbutz. But that's what he served, and his chaverim was kibbutznikim from this Givat Brenner. She would go to this kibbutz every single day to put on film with the kibbutznikim. And when she came, they would line up and make her a mishmar kavod. Mishmar kavod means, what's a mishmar kavod? A guard of honor. They would all line up, they would take their left sleeve off, and she would put on film to all of them. They had so much respect for her. They knew what she did. The money she got from Misrad HaBitachon, she gave away, she bought film. And she came to this meeting with Rebbe Yisrael Lego organized. When she came, she was the only woman. When she came in, everybody stood up for her. Shneur Gerelik, Rav Chanzin, all the Rabbonim, the Choshev Rabbonim from Chabad, all stood up for this lady, extraordinary. Now she's already an old lady. I happen to be in a few chasanas of her children, and the Rebbe shall give her a long life and all the best, and she will be matzliach in everything she does. What shall I tell you? This was the Rebbe spoke on Lag Boimer. I wasn't there. I actually was already in the army. but this is a Angemeise which I don't want to go in now. I was going back from Yerushalayim. I got stuck in Yerushalayim when the war broke out, and I had to get back. So I got a lift from Yerushalayim with a police car to Ramle, and from Ramle I walked. It was 8 kilometers to walk to our unit. I knew approximately how to get there, but they were shooting. The Jordanians were shelling. There were shells falling all over the place. There's nothing I could do with my helmet or my rifle. What can I do against shells? So I walked. I walked, and I was quite upset because I left my wife and children in a Eretz shelter, in a miklat. I was afraid. I was afraid for them more than for myself. And as I was walking, suddenly I hear someone say, "Shmulik!" Somebody jumped there. From, every Chayal had to dig a trench for himself. A shukha, a little foxhole. A foxhole. And he was in a foxhole, I didn't see him, but Shmuel Chayfer. Shmuel Chayfer was a friend of mine. He was a little bit older than me, so he was taken to the army 1 week after I was taken to the army. So, we embraced, Shalom Aleichem, and I shed a tear. Even a little bit of a balbeche in any case, and now I had a reason. So I cried. So he asked me, sagte mir, Per Adam, was weinst du? Why are you crying? So I told him, because my wife and children are in a miklat and the Jordanians are shelling. So he said, don't worry, the Rebbe spoke, he was at home when, like Boimer, and he was hook up, and he heard the Farbrengen from the Rebbe. So he said, don't worry, nothing will happen, Israel will have a victory. And I heard from the Rebbe himself, so he has been Mechaya given. And of course we parted, I had to go on. And he asked me, have you got something to eat? Because he was lying there for hours and he was hungry. I had 2 oranges with me. I gave him these 2 oranges. Many years later, when I was ready here in Besrivka, he is also a Menahel of Besrivka. He's a Menahel of the seminary in Besrivka in Kfar Chabad. One of my students wanted to go to Kfar Chabad to a seminary. And he wasn't keen in accepting students from Chutz La'aretz. He didn't want to, he wanted only Israelis. And I wanted this girl to go. And he didn't want, so I said, you owe me 2 oranges. So he took her. And he wrote to me that I accepted her, but I paid you for one orange. She was very matzliach, Baruch Hashem. She's already a grandmother here. I don't want to say who it is. Everybody knows her. The following year, my daughter wanted to go to Kfar Chabad, and he still doesn't want to accept. He doesn't want to accept Chutz La'aretz. So I said, 1 more orange, and he accepted her. And that's it. He says, I don't owe you anymore. Thank you.
Sure. I call now upon Reb Leibish Moshe, otherwise known as Josh Goldish, to address us on the meaning of Yud Tes Kislev and Dimura Chassidus V'Yikir. Please give your utmost and undivided attention, especially as we're in the Goldish Hall.
First of all, I want to say a happy birthday to Chanoich. Where's Chanoich? Over there. Happy birthday. Shnas Hatzlacha. You'll have a successful year. I'm not sure why Rabbi Groner and Rabbi Johnson asked me to speak, but here I am. I wanted to talk a little bit about my journey to learning Chassidus. I've been learning with Rabbi Aral over here since 1995, the Rebbe's memory. But something happened 4 years ago which had a major effect on me. I went to the Kinnes HaShluchim 4 years ago, And on the Shabbos, I went to the Rebbe's room, and as most people here know, it's Shabbos Mevarchim. So you say Tehillim at 8, davening is at 10, and for those of you who have been there, you're squashed like a sardine. And I'm standing in the front left hand near the Rebbe's desk, next to a barrel. And I'm jet lagged, and I've been up late for Farbrengen the night before, and I've been there since before 8 o'clock to get in. And it's like 12:30, and they announced there's a half an hour break between Musaf and Mincha. And I said to myself, I'm done. I can't, I'm out of here. And I said to Rabarel, he probably doesn't remember, I don't know if he does. I said to Rabarel, goodbye, I'm done, I'm going to Beishmul. And Rabarel says, stay, let's learn a sikha. Like this, we stand like this. He's holding the sikha like this. So we start learning this sikha, and the Rebbe's talking about the idea of learning the Hasidic Parsha, and how, I think it's specifically Shluchim, but Hasidim should learn the Alter Rebbe's Likutei Torah and Torah. I didn't really even know what it was. Okay, so I come home, and I thought maybe I'll try it. So I come home and I speak to Rabbi Johnson, and I said, is there someone in the kollel who can learn with me Hasidic Parsha? And he says, how often do you want to learn? And I said, I want to try to learn every day. And he said, I'll learn with you. And that was 4 years ago. And so the last 4 years, we've been learning every single morning. And there's a reason why I'm saying this. I'll get there in a minute. I feel particularly connected to the Alter Rebbe for a number of reasons. Number one, obviously I learned his Maimorim nearly every day, as well as Tanya, Chitas. I've actually been to Hadich, and I'm actually close with Rabbi Segal, who's the Shlich in Poltava, which is about half an hour from Hadich. And when I went on the GEM trip in August, we did a trip following the Rebbe's early years. So we went to Odessa, Nikolaev, Kherson, and then Dnieper, and then we flew to Alma-Ata in Kazakhstan, and then we went to Petersburg. And we went to the Alter Rebbe's jail, we went to the Peter Paul Fortress, and which is now a museum. And one of the guys on this trip sponsored a Sefer Torah, the start of the Sefer Torah. And so everyone would get a letter in 4 places. So some got in Nikolaev, where the Rebbe was born, at the spot where the Rebbe was born. Some got in Dnieper at Rebbe Shul. Some got in Alma-Ata. Alma-Ata. Sorry. My apologies, I'm getting the pronunciation wrong. And I got my letter in the jail in Petersburg. I don't know if it was Alter Rebbe's jail, but in the jail, they pulled up the Torah, and about 6, Rabbi Shapiro and a bunch of other people, they got letters. So for me, it was a very moving moment. Anyway, getting back to my learning, about 1.5 years ago, Yechiel Belfer approached me, and said, can he join? And I said, sure. And so in addition to learning Likutei Torah and Torah every day, we also start doing special projects. So we started learning before big days, Yom Ha'Pagra or Yom Tovim, Maimon of the Rebbe. So we would learn a number of mine before Purim, for Yud Shvat, Yud Tes Tammuz, and then we did a project before Yud Tes Kislev where we said the Kosses put out a new book of the Rebbe's Maimorim on particular dates, and there were 60 Maimorim of the Rebbe on Yud Tes Kislev. And so we said we'll see how many we can learn in the last month. And Baruch Hashem, we learned 25 Maimorim of the Rebbe. Now, Rabarel has told me, well, I learned, and then I was reading the Frierdiker Rebbe, and the Frierdiker Rebbe in Tovshin Beis, in the Sichos, and he says that it's actually not about quantity, it's actually about avoided. Does the Chassidus actually affect you? And then Rabarel told me it's actually more about, instead of learning 30 Maimorim, you learn one Maimor 30 times, and then the Maimor is part of you. But anyway, we still did it. Anyway, the effect of all this learning Chassidus is that I think on reflection, is actually had a few things have happened. Number one, I realized that I really enjoy learning Chassidus. I would say that I love learning Chassidus, which as a kid I definitely did not. Rabbi Groner was my teacher, and I remember he taught us part of Shalom. That's what I remember. And then number two, what happens, not overnight, but slowly, your perspective on things starts changing, because obviously Chassidus, I mean, this is my part, is a bit counterintuitive. It's the opposite of what you would think. I can give a lot of examples of that, but you know, what is what is the lowest down here has the highest source, and how the world values gashmius and wealth and honor and beauty, and Chassidus know how to get to Yechida, and the essence is through Bittul and Kabbalah soil, the opposite of what you would think. And so your perspective starts changing, and then what happens then is that your ambitions and goals change. Because what happens is, instead of being focused like I'm in business, you focus on material goals, you focus on money and material pleasures. When you learn Chassidus, you start focusing on spiritual goals, and you start focusing on things like Maimorim and Sichos and davening and learning and giving tzedakah. And so it doesn't just happen overnight, but you start changing how you look at things. Now, why learn Chassidus? I'm sure most of you know the reason. I don't have to put it out here, but I would highly recommend everyone learn Kuntras in Yonah Shel Torah Chassidus. The Rebbe said it on Yud Tes Kislev in Tafshin Chafei in 1964, 1965, I think, 53 years ago. It's translated in English on the book on the essence of Chassidus. The Rebbe in that Sikha says 4 reasons why we learn Chassidus, so I'm not going to go into, but he says the main reason, and he talks about Moed Ani at length, and we've nearly finished learning it, but I have learned it in English, is that the main reason why we learn Chassidus is because Chassidus is the essence of everything. It is Yechida, it's the essence of everything. So why am I all saying all this? And here's the point. On Shabbos, this past Shabbos, in the Shul Farbrengen, Rabbi Wolf from Chicago was here. And he got up and he said that in Chicago, they started a program of learning Chassidus 45 minutes before davening every day. And they got 30 guys to commit to come every day to learn Chassidus. And he said it has literally changed Chicago. And then he got up and he said something pretty amazing. And then he said they got about 30 people during the week and about 50 on Shabbos. And he said something pretty amazing. He said, I, as in Rabbi Wolf, will pledge you $1,000 US of Farbeisen of food and drink if you develop such a program in Melbourne. And I thought that was amazing. I've been reading Chassidus Deher, as I'm sure a lot of you do, and in that it talks a lot of stories about how for Yud Aleph Nisan, for the Rebbe's anniversary from the 14th of Kislev, they would give gifts to the Rebbe. And it wasn't physical gifts, it was spiritual gifts. People would give gifts of learning Torah. And as everyone knows, in yesterday's Hayom Yom, it says very clearly that tonight, Yud Tes Kislev, we have to make positive resolutions for fixed times learning Nigla and Chassidus. Now, just Yud Dalet Kislev was been 90 years since the Rebbe's anniversary. So I'm up here and I'm saying as a community, we should give the Rebbe a gift. And we should give the Rebbe a spiritual gift of making hachlata to have fixed times to learning Chassidus, especially in the morning. I know a lot of people do this already. I've seen there's heaps of shiurim in the morning before all the minyanim, and kol hakavod to everyone, but I'm sure people have capacity. And I think it comes down to one key thing. It comes down to rotzon. It comes down to will. If you want to do it, and you make it a priority, you can do it. I'm proof. If you make it, this is my priority, this is what I'm doing, I'm learning Chassidus, I'm going to go to bed early because I'm going to get Chassidus, I'm going to learn, then it'll happen. And some people might ask, well, what do you mean giving the Rebbe a gift, post Gimel Tammuz? But I think it's pretty clear, we all know, that, I mean, the Alter Rebbe says it in Igeres HaKodesh, that a tzaddik's life is not a physical life. Tzaddik's life is a spiritual life. It's made up of Ava, Yira, and Emunah. And therefore, especially now, the Rebbe's not rich at the Gashmias, but please God he will be, but we can give him this spiritual gift of learning Chassidus. So, a number of the Maimorim we learned were part of a Shalom and Maimorim of the Rebbe. And the Rebbe explains a number of these Maimorim that there's 3 types of pot of Shaloms. There's a pot of Shalom which is mainly Gemilas Chasadim when you're in business and then you give tzedakah. That's through a milchama. Then there's Tefillah, which is especially B'tzibur, and that's a Cherev Shel Shalom, like it's a battle of peace. But then the ultimate Shalom, the Rebbe says a number of Maimorim, is through learning Torah, and specifically learning Chassidus where there is no opposition. The truth is like this is my view. The Rabbeim have given us this amazing gift, and the gift is Chassidus. And most people don't learn Chassidus, they don't know. I know a lot of my friends are Mizrahi, other guys, they don't even know about that perspective, they have no idea, but we have this amazing gift. So, and this amazing secret and this amazing perspective on things, and we should all use it. So on this auspicious day, everyone should have their own pot of a shalom, their own personal redemption for whatever they need, the gashmius of ruchnius, especially after making a chlata to increase in Chassidus, and may we have the ultimate pot of a shalom with Mashiach.
I want to say a special l'chaim for a full shleim for a little baby, Nachem Mendel ben Chana Libish, we have a full shleim for Kreugel. L'chaim. We know that the Alter Rebbe is digging of Dalit Bavas, you can't sing just any time of the year, but Farbrengen for Chag HaGula, Yud Tes Kislev, we can sing it. Ay, 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 ay. I'd like to now call upon Rabbi Yehuda Hoch to address us.
L'chaim, l'chaim, B'shana Teva, B'limud HaChassidus, B'darkei HaChassidus, T'kaseva, V'sechasema. There's a story that's told about a certain community of Chassidim, a very small community. There were actually only 9 men who lived in a larger community of non-Chassidim. And they needed a few things they were lacking. First of all, the 10th man for their minyan. Secondly, they needed a Chassidish sheikhet. And they also were looking for a malamed, a Chassidish malamed for their kids. So they identified an individual who was able to fit the bill and do all 3. But they realized that bringing a Chassidish sheikhet at that time, it was during the time of the Tzemach Tzedek, would be very difficult because there's a major machlekes about what the right type of knife should be used, what the right chalif was. A big machlekes between the Chassidim and the non-Chassidim. Some say that wasn't exactly the machlekes at that time, it was already resolved, different girsais in the story. But the point is that it wasn't so simple to bring a Chassidish sheikhet, it would create tremendous opposition. So they didn't know what to do. And they asked the Tzemach Tzedek whether they should try to bring down the sheikhet. And the Tzemach Tzedek answered them that for the Zaydas Chalif, that for my grandfather's knife, the knife that the Alter Rebbe said a sheikhet should use, you have to have Mesiras Nefesh. So they had their answer, and they brought down this individual to teach their children to be the sheikhet, and he was the 10th man for the minyan. They tried to keep it hush-hush for as long as they could. No one should know there's a Chassidish sheikhet in town. But it didn't take long before the community found out that this sheikhet was around. and they were extremely agitated by this. And they called the Chassidim to Din Torah. It was going to be a big showdown. The Rav of the community, many Chashuva members came, and the Chassidim were called in, the 9 Chassidim. And they were challenged. The Rav of the community starts speaking to them in a very derogatory manner. Amaratzim, you lowlifes, ignoramuses, who do you think you are, bringing down a sheikhet over here? And this went on for a little while. And one of the Chassidim who was there, was present, was holding a sefer in his hand. It was a sefer of the Maharsha, which was not yet printed in the back of the Gemaras. So it was its own volume, and he was holding this Maharsha. And he opens up the Maharsha, and he to a random page, and he starts to explain the Gemara and the Tosfos behind the Maharsha, and then he explains what the Maharsha was saying. B'tuv tam, a beautiful explanation. It was geschmack for everyone to hear, and they were duly impressed by what this chassid was able to give over. But nevertheless, they said, Mistafa, it's a sugya that you just went through. It's fresh on your mind. So, he opened up another Maharsha and gave them the opportunity to choose any Maharsha that they wanted, and he was able to give the entire background, the Gemara, the other Mefarshim, and exactly what the Maharsha was Mechadish, which was something that the Rav of the community was not able to do at all. And so, it was obvious that the Chassidim are not exactly ignoramuses. Some of them were great Talmidei Chachamim, and that closed the case, and they were able to keep the Chassidish Sheikh. The story doesn't end there, because when they went out of court, when they went out of the Beis Din, this chassid got a serious telling off. Hayitachin, a chassid showing off his knowledge, showing off his B'kiyas and Torah, doesn't seem like the type of thing that a chassid should be doing. They gave him a very hard time about this. To which the chassid responded that the Tzemach Tzedek told us that for the Yud Tes Kislev darf man haben Mesiras Nefesh. This chassid certainly was a big Atznei Aleches, and he probably spent his whole life trying to make sure that there was no blitas, and that his Torah that he learned was not known by all, and he put effort into it, and it was a major inyan by him. And in one day, the whole thing blew. In one day, his godless in Torah was uncovered b'fnei kol am v'eda. And for a chassid, that was real Mesiras Nefesh. But it was the call of the hour. And so therefore, he stood up to the call of the hour, and he gave it all away for the Yud Tes Kislev, that they should be able to have a Chassidish sheikhet in town. And the story is a very telling story, because sometimes one thinks that there's a typical way that a chassid needs to look. A chassid has to be batal, he has to be humble, he has to be shval ruach, which is true. But he cannot focus on his own humility. That can't be the focus, that I should be humble. The nekuda is that the inyan has to get done. What the Eibishter want has to get done. Whether it means that I'll be batal, or it means that I'll be the biggest yesh in town, it's not about you, and that's real bittul. I have a chaver that I learn chassidus with from time to time, who had the opportunity, unfortunately, had the opportunity to learn other philosophies. We got caught up in other philosophies, and without mentioning names, but one philosophy in particular, which he took a liking to before he started learning chassidus, pushed and stressed very much the idea of humility. Bittul. And we were once learning a Maimer, a Chanukah Maimer, and he asked this question, that what's the difference? Seemingly Chassidus and this philosophy are saying a similar thing, that one has to be batal, he has to be nullified. They focus a lot on meditating and nullifying oneself. And amongst the things that we discussed, possibly of the difference, is exactly the nekud of this story. That by them, the vart is that I should be nullified. It's all about me. I should be batal. By Chassidim, it's that what the Eibusher wants should happen. It's not about me. It's not my bittul, not my yesh. It's not nothing to do with me. It's about what the Eibusher wants. That's the matar. And maybe there's also a beer in a famous story that's told about the Mittler Rebbe. A chassid of the Mittler Rebbe, when he would come back from the Rebbe, he would pass through the different ayaris, the different cities. And every city he stopped in, he would give over chassidus. And he was a Baal Aspara, he was able to explain chassidus in a beautiful manner, people appreciated it. And he complained to the Mittler Rebbe that he feels like he's becoming a big yesh, he's getting quite arrogant from his success. And the Mittler Rebbe answered him that a tzibel is of unir veren, but chassidus als tu chazren, that you'll become an onion, but you should continue to teach chassidus. Which bepashtus means that even though you're an onion, and try to bite into an onion, it's not very pleasant, it's bitter. You're a yesh, you're a balgaiva, you're not the most pleasant person to be around. But nevertheless, an onion gives taste to every type of food. You're giving inspiration, you're giving a chayis, you're giving taste to other yidden. So you have to forego your own shleimus of being takeh batal in order to help other Jews. So b'pashtus, the story is that yes, it's true that you're not batal, but nevertheless, you have to do it because you're helping other yidden. But maybe you can say a little deeper that the Mittler Rebbe was telling you what real bittul is. Real bittul is that you're not thinking about yourself at all. It makes no difference if you're a yesh or you're not a yesh. It makes a difference if you're batal or not. And the kuda is that the inyan is all ufgitan. You have to worry about what the Eibishter wants, not about yourself at all. The focus on what the Eibishter wants. And the same way as it is, bein adam lamokim, it's also bein adam lachaverek. Like there's a story that a Yid once came to a Rav, and granted this same Yid that I told you about, that he had this question about bittul, he asked me a similar question. He's a big Baal Tzedakah, similar question. But anyway, a Yid once came to a Rav, and he asked the Rav, he said that I feel yeshus from all of the tzedakah that I'm giving. I feel so good about myself, maybe I should stop giving the tzedakah. And the Rav told him, yep, you have to continue to give tzedakah because the ani needs the food. So it's very nice you feel yeshus now, but the ani has to be taken care of. So b'pashtus, the ma'aseh is that it's true, you're a Baal Gaiva, what can you do? However, we have to help out the ani. But deeper speaking, really that's the idea of bittul. Real bittul is that you're not worried about yourself at all. It's not about you, it's about the ani getting his tzedakah. So we find ourselves now, Rish Chedesh, Reish Hashanah L'Chsidis, Yud Tes and Chav Kislev. And a chassid, there's a saying that there's three things that have guaranteed effects. That money, eventually, everyone should be an ashik b'gashmis, but money is supposed to make a person mishugah. And mashkin makes a person intoxicated, and chassidus makes a person edel and batal. And if you didn't have the wanted effect, then it means you just didn't have enough. You need a little more money, you need a little more mashkin, you need a little more chassidus. So it's Rosh Hashanah l'chassidus, and the focus certainly is of chassidus, the idea of bittul, but emes the bittul. Not that I am batal, like it says in Re'umah, that I need to show that I'm batal, but real bittul, that you're focused on what the Eibishter wants. Hashem Echad, that it's all about what the goal, the kavanah el yena. And sometimes, on our own, it's difficult to get to the truth of what the kavanah el yena is, what the Eibishter wants, because Adam Karvetz alatzmai. And so therefore, a vital ingredient of being a chassid is that a person has to have a yaseh lecha rav, a knei lecha chaver, but you have to have someone who you can ask and to see what's talking the kavanah el yena, what does the Eibishter want? Not what do you want, because it can be all kinds of tricky, the Yitzhak comes in all kinds of covers and masks. So one has to have someone who's objective, a mashpia, who you can ask him what does the Eibishter want, and that's what you do. And sometimes the Eibishter wants you to be the Gres de Yesh, and sometimes he wants you to be totally batal, and everything in between. It doesn't make a difference. And the kudah is that the kavanah zol ufgetan, and we should have bias of Mashiach taken from Yad Lamata Masar Tvachim.
Behemshech to words of Levish Moshe Goldhirsch, my chavrusa, who I've had the zchus to learn with for 4 years, and it's mamish an inspiration. When Levish Moshe asked why it was, he doesn't know why he was asked to speak. So I felt that for Rabbanim, Mashpiyim, Darshanim, to get up and speak about the importance of Limud Achsidus every single day, so it would not have been as impactful as hearing it from Baal Asik himself, someone who understands the pressures and commitments of business hours and who might not be throughout the day in the same headspace as a Klei Kodesh. So whereas if the message would have come from a Rav, a Mashpia, that a person has to learn Chassidus every day, that a Chassid, every Chassid has to learn Chassidus every day, so the message could have got lost. But when you hear such words of inspiration, it's something which inspires me to see the Ibige Gemenkeit, the dedication, the devotion of a Chassid to Limud Chassidus in a way that he feels that it's Taka B'chayus Nafshenu, that he lives for it, and he lives with it. So hopefully those words will be Dvarim HaYotzim in Alev, Nichnasin al Alev, and be inspiring to all of Anash here in Yeshiva, here in Melbourne, that they should get on board with the Achlata Tova, because after all, when one looks at the Matorah of the Farbrengen, so every Farbrengen has a different focus, a different Matorah. One of the Maimonim from Drushei Chasana, the Frierdiker Rebbe speaks about the inyan of a chasana in the Maimar Asher Bara Sosin V'Simcha, that just the etzem zach that you have Yidden gathering together, Yidden come together, tens, hundreds, thousands, the mere fact that we sit together, we come together ba'achdus, in achva, that itself is a gewaldige accomplishment. How much more so when there is a matara that we don't just come together to be in each other's company and to share brotherly camaraderie, but rather we use it as an opportunity to inspire others and to become inspired ourselves in matters of kiyum ha'torah v'amitzvahs hachlotos tovos in kviyas itim l'torah. And if that's true with regards to a Farbrengen Bichlal, here we have direct instructions which the Rebbe printed in Hayom Yom for Yud Tes Kislev, the beginning, the very first entry of Hayom Yom. You do it that it was a request from the Frierdiker Rebbe that the Rebbe should make the calendar of Hayom Yom go from Yud Tes Kislev to Yud Tes Kislev based on that which the Rebbe Rashab said, that this is Rosh Hashanah L'Chsidus. So in the Michtav, in the words which we find in the entry of Hayom Yom Yud Tes Kislev, there is a Hira'ah about what the purpose of the Farbrengen should be. It should be a Yom Yisvadus, a day of Farbrengen, v'kabbalas hachlatos tovos b'kriyas itim l'torah aniglis v'dach divrei l'kim chayim berabim v'chizuk darkei chassidus ba'avas reim. Two nekudas, that it has to be hachlatos tovos, that is the purpose of the gathering, the Yisvadus of Yud Tes Kislev Rosh Hashanah l'chassidus, is that we make hachlatos tovos to establish fixed times for learning Torah, Nigla of Torah, and also learning Pnimis HaTorah, but not just to do so on a personal, individual level, but that it should be Dafka B'Rabbim. As we know, the Maila Chassidus explains, when you have Talmud Torah, the Rabbim Dafka has a tremendous Maila, and I think that is the idea that Rabbi Wolf spoke about on Shabbos, and the mitzvah that we're going to be trying to encourage, that it should not just be the Limud HaChassidus, but there should be a Rabbim behind as well. The Frierdiker Rebbe, in one of the letters, Bekensher to Yud Tes, the Olam can please. I was also asked, Rebbe Aro mentioned, and Josh reminded me that our shir is open to anyone who wants to join. It's every morning, Monday through Friday, 7 to 7:40 in the morning, 7 to 7:35 in the morning. On Sundays we learn from 7:40 to 8:30 in the morning, and on Shabbos between Mincha and Ma'ariv, if anyone wants to join. And if anyone knows other shiurim in Chassidus that they want to open up to others, please do so. So the Frierdiker Rebbe said in a letter the following words. Ramato, the old Dvei Shir, 7 to 7:30. Ramato and Rabbi Yisrael sitting together. 6:45, 45 minutes of Chassidus. It's already been made up. Shekoyach. So the Frierdiker Rebbe says as follows: Be'yoyim, on this day, Asher Pada B'Shalom Nafshenu, that this day of Yud Tes Kislev, when our souls, the Chassidim, was redeemed. Yoyim Kiruv HaMa'ir L'Anitzut, it's a day on which the Ma'ir, the Etzem, Atzmus U'Muhus, comes close to the Nitzutz of the Neshama. On this day, Aleichem, what is the obligation of a Chassid? Lasois Cheshbon HaNefesh Adaita D'Nafsha. A person has to make a personal introspection, a personal Cheshbon HaNefesh, the way Torah's Chassidus demands a Cheshbon Nefesh should be, and that is that we are not matzik ourselves with asmaslois, shoynos, v'tainos shel hevel, that we don't try and pat ourselves on the back and justify our behaviors with all sorts of excuses. A person has to look at themselves with a very, very sharp examination, as though kilu oimed lifnei rabbeinu hazakein bal hasimcha, that is, we should see ourselves standing, giving a din v'cheshbein in the presence of the Alter Rebbe, the Baal HaGeula, the Baal HaSimcha, to give a din on what? B'chol asher pa'al v'asa b'mekoymoi u'mekoym meguroi v'meshech hashana, on everything that we've accomplished here in the place where we live throughout the year, ba'ad nafshenu, on account of for our souls, b'koyach v'chayus hanitin lanu, using that v'chayus of Torah Chassidus, which was given to us by the Alter Rebbe, given to us by the Rebbeim on this day. And these are very, very powerful words. When we sit by Yud Tes Kislev Farbrengen, and a Farbrengen is also a time where we introspect. Certainly Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is a time of evaluation, a cheshbon nefesh on the year that passed by. And what we have to focus on is that we were given a gift. We have a gift of v'chayus nafshenu nitan lanu, a gift that the Alter Rebbe was meiser nefesh for. The Alter Rebbe sat 53 days b'tvisav keneged the 53 prakim gan, prakim of Sefer HaTanya. And the Alter Rebbe was meiser nefesh not for himself that he should have Torah Chassidus, but for hafatzas amaynas chutza, that we should have Torah Chassidus, that we should have the opportunity to open a Sefer Chassidus, a Maimer, a Sicha, Sefer HaTanya itself, and to be able to use it, to be able to learn for it. This the Alter Rebbe was meiser nefesh for. So the introspection they have to make on this day is that how are we justifying the Alter Rebbe's meiser? How are we utilizing that which Alter Rebbe was meiser nefesh for in our own lives, in our own learning of Torah Chassidus, in our avodah of hafatzas amaynos chutza? How are we using this out? The bracha that we give on this day, is L'shana Tova b'limud Chassidus u'b'darkei Chassidus tikaseimu v'seichaseimu. We give each other bracha in two nekudas. There should be limud Chassidus, and there should also be the inyan of darkei Chassidus. Elsewhere I saw explained that, going back to what Rabbi Lipsker said earlier, that these two ideas are the v'chayus nafshenu, that the of Chassidus, that is limud Chassidus, pashut learning, illuminating your mind, as Josh said, it gives you a different perspective. You're illuminated in how you look at yourselves, how you look at another yid, how you look at the world, how you look at purpose, completely illuminated. But then there's also the inyan of darkei Chassidus, that is the application of Chassidus. the avodah of Chassidus, not the haskalah, but the avodah, the integration, the living, the absorbing, the limud Chassidus that we do. But in Hayom Yom, in the entry of Chavdala Tevis, which of course is connected to Yud Tes Kislev being the Yom HaYilula of the Alter Rebbe, and to a certain degree, it's a hemshech of Yud Tes Kislev, like the Hayom Yom of today, that in Babich there was not time to make the Chalukas HaShas by Yud Tes Kislev because there was not enough time to do so. And therefore they would make it on Chavdala Tevis, something which is also connected to Yud Tes Kislev. And in Chavdala Tevis, it tells them that the Rebbe Maharash asked the Tzemach Tzedek, what is it? Was hat the Zayde gewalt? What did the Rebbe, the Zayde, the Alter Rebbe want mit Darkei Chassidus? Und was hat gewalt mit Chassidus? And what did he want with the Chassidus itself, with the learning of Chassidus? So what is Darkei Chassidus? What is Limud Chassidus? So here we have a hezber from the Tzemach Tzedek himself. The Tzemach Tzedek says that Darkei Chassidus, the ways of Chassidus, is as alle Chassidim sollen sein wie ein Mishpacha al pi ha-Torah be'ava. The Darkei Chassidus, yes, Darkei Chassidus means limud Rambam every day. Darkei Chassidus means going to mikveh every day. Darkei Chassidus means having shiurim with Chassidus every day. Darkei Chassidus means doing mivtzoim on a regular basis. Darkei Chassidus means wearing a hat and a gartel and a psakapata and everything that we do, Tilim, Shabbos, Mavarkim, Chitas, etc. All of these are certainly Darkei Chassidus. But where is the ultimate expression of Darkei Chassidus? The ultimate expression of a person who's really absorbed the teachings of Chassidus is that it translates that the Chassidim are like one mishpacha with Abba, v'ahavta l'reacha kamoicha, which of course is the heart and soul of Chassidus, the lave of Tanya, Torah Shebetzabah Chassidus, the inyan of Abbas Yisrael. And Chassidus itself is chayus. The chayus we have to bring and illuminate everything with the chayus, even that which is loitoiv. We have to illuminate and shed light on it so we become aware of it and how to fix it, etc. So if we take this Nakuda, the Darkei Chassidus, the expression is in the inyan of the Chassidim Zal Zayin Vi Ein Mishpacha Ba'ava. So Yudu, the Frierdiker Rebbe told the following about the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe suffered from some form of condition, some form of physical malady, that he would have nosebleeds. Not that it was just nosebleeds, but it was a little bit more severe than that. There would be shtiklach, pieces would actually come out from his nose. And the Alter Rebbe went to consulted with the doctor about it. What is the cause of such a condition? And the professor said that the cause of such an illness, of this condition, is that the Alter Rebbe is striving to reach for something that he is not able to reach. That he's trying to reach something that, because he cannot reach, this great yearning within him is giving rise to this physical malady. And says the Frierdiker Rebbe that we all know what exactly it was that the Alter Rebbe was trying to reach, that he would not be able to reach necessarily. And those are the words with which the Rebbe concludes the Hayom Yom of the Sefer Hayom Yom in the entry of Chai Kislev, where he concludes that which we would hear when the Alter Rebbe was in a state of dveikus, he would say, Ich will ze gar nit, that I don't want anything at all. Ich will nit ein Gan Eden, ich will nit ein Olam Haba, saying to the Eibishter, I don't want any of your Giluyim. I don't want all of the levels of Gan Eden or Olam Haba. Ich will mer nit as dich allein. That the only thing I want is you. Atzmus u'mus. This was the Alter Rebbe's craving. That the Alter Rebbe's dveikus, the Alter Rebbe's yearning was to attach himself to Atzmus u'mus. Says the Frierdiker Rebbe that the Alter Rebbe was a Baal Mesiras Nefesh. The Alter Rebbe was a Baal Mesiras Nefesh Kipshutoy. The Alter Rebbe suffered at the hands of the Misnagdim for spreading Torah Chassidus. The Alter Rebbe suffered at the hands of the Chavraya Kadisha of the Maggid of Mezrich, who didn't agree with his derech. The Alter Rebbe sat Mesiras Nefesh, was arrested multiple times, a couple of times. However, says the Frierdiker Rebbe that the real Mesiras Nefesh of the Alter Rebbe was to detach himself from the level of Im chaloi chafatzti ba'aretz, this level of that I desire nothing else besides you, not in the heavens, in the ruchnius, not in the earth, not in Olam Haba, not in Gan Eden Tachton. The Alter Rebbe wanted only Atzmus, and yet the Alter Rebbe would disconnect and sever himself from that which he was yearning to connect to, a connection to Atzmus Mahus. For what? To Toivaton Yidin, to do a favor for a Yid. Not only a favor Baruchnius, that even a favor to Pasha, to a favor begashmis for another year, the Alter Rebbe was Moise Nefesh to sever his connection Kaviyachol. Ki Yudua, we won't go into the pratim of the story because everyone's heard it countless times. One of the stories the Rebbe told about the Alter Rebbe was the Maisa of chopping wood on Yom Kippur. And this story was not told publicly. The Alter Rebbe was referred to as the Mechalel Yom Kippur, that it was not something which was told in a flattering way, and was not something which was b'shevachai, at least. But the Rebbe, when the Rebbe told the story with a big shturim, with a big force, because in this it actually brings out the gadlus, the greatness of the Alter Rebbe. And that is, in the way the Rebbe tells over that the Alter Rebbe, Kol Nidrei, on Yom Kippur, the Alter Rebbe's tefillos, and yet the Alter Rebbe, imagine what state of dveikus the Alter Rebbe is on Yom Kippur by Nacht. Right? Achas Bashana. The Alter Rebbe is there standing, Gili HaYechida, Etzem Be'etzem. The Alter Rebbe is connecting to the Eibishter on the highest of levels. This is Kol She'eri Ubesari. And yet, the Alter Rebbe in that moment severs his connection to that, to go and help a Yoledes, that she should be able to have hot food, and this is not Taka Chilu Yom Kippur, Chilu Shabbos at all, that this is the Inyan Pikuach Nefesh and Mitzvah Begadol, etc., etc. But I think that story really brings out what exactly the tachlis of Limud Achsidus should be, what Darkei Achsidus should be. It starts with Limud Achsidus. Unless you have the Limud Achsidus beginning at the start, then nothing else begins. Everything we do starts from Seichel. That's the emphasis of Chabad Achsidus. Moyach Shalit Al Alev, that the way we think in our minds, what we fill our headspace with, the way we start to look at things and understand things and perceive things, that's where it starts from. So a person has to develop that perspective. We develop that perspective by Pashut learning Chassidus. Learning it, Ba'amkus, Ba'archava, breadth, depth, learning it, B'shufi, learning a lot of Chassidus, filling our headspace with it. But then it has to flow through into Darkei Chassidus, into the Avoid of Chassidus, that it becomes applied Chassidus. It's how we live our lives. And the greatest application of that is the Inyan of Toivaton HaYidin, the Inyan of Avas Yisrael. When the Lashon of the Rebbe in HaYom Yom, that what is it all worth when it's felt the Iker, when the Iker is missing, that there's the Inyan of Hepech Avas Yisrael, then what is the whole Chassidus worth? Ki Yudua, that Teres Chassidus Chabad, the essential text is Sefer HaTanya, which the Rebbe would make Siyumim on Yud Tes Kislev, and Haskalah as well, we have Yud Tes Kislev. In Sefer HaTanya, so in the first manuscript of the Alter Rebbe, what we have is Perek Lamed Beis, the Lev of Tanya, which is a Perek which speaks about Avos Yisrael, did not feature, was not there. And one could even open a Sefer Tanya and learn Perek Lamed Aleph, and skip to Perek Lamed Gimel, and it can read as a Hemshech. One can follow along as though that Perek was not there at all. When the Alter Rebbe added Perek Lamed Beis of Tanya, the Inyan of Avos Yisrael, so the Rebbe says in a Maimer, I think in Tovshin Memches, Yud Tes Kislev Farbrengen, the Rebbe says that the Alter Rebbe could have added this Perek anywhere. Could have put it in the Hisofa, is there in Kuntras Achron at the end. He could have put it in anywhere else. He could have put it really in any position in Sefer HaTanya. The Alter Rebbe chose B'davka to place it where it was, as the 32nd chapter, as Perek Leiv. And the Nukud is that it tells us two things. First of all, it tells us that this is the Leiv, that this is the heart, this is the vitality, this is the essence of the Kiyum of Toras Chassidus, because a person cannot live without a heart, so to Chassidus cannot live without the Inyan of Avos Yisrael. But the Rebbe explains on a deeper level that the reason it had to be in such a way that first the Alter Rebbe didn't include it, and then the Alter Rebbe puts it in, is to tell us to be shoylol, ahava min kasaka daitach, that a person might think, I can have Chassidus, the ganz Chassidus, without the Inyan of Avos Yisrael, and I'm fine, I'm sholem, that I'm a perfect chassid, that I learn Chassidus. Comes on the Alter Rebbe to tell us that no, that you can have Chassidus, but calls man that is felt the Iker, so that is the Hepech Inyan of Chassidus in Ganzen. And this is what the Alter Rebbe emphasizes in Katoiti, in the Igeres, that even to those who wanted to bring a downfall to the Alter Rebbe's perspective was, the one still has to go with the Inyan of Avos Yisrael. Afilu to the Misnagid who abused him in his house for 3 hours, the Alter Rebbe was mechabed him with a cup of tea, etc. But the Alter Rebbe himself is mekasher the geula to Inyan of Pada b'sholem nafshi. And of course, whilst Chassidus explains b'sholem, refers to all sorts of different inyanim and avodas habirurim, but ein mikra yoytze v'dei pshutai. The Alter Rebbe is emphasizing the inyan of shalom, that there has to be the inyan of shalom, and without that, so then the ikar of Torah Chassidus is missing. So when we make achlatos tovos on this day, Yud Tes Kislev Farbrengen, certainly like the Rebbe Rashab said, there have to be achlatos in kviyus itim in limud HaTorah, bifrat limud Torah Chassidus. There also has to be achlatos not just in the limud Chassidus, but in the darkei Chassidus as well. And certainly all of those inyanim that we mentioned before are darkei Chassidus, but the ikar is the inyan of Avos Yisrael in Toivaton HaYidden, in bringing it down all the way into how we interact with others as well, how we interact bifrat with those who are around us. To have Avos Yisrael, like the Baal Shem Tov said, to a Yid on the other side of the world that you've never seen before, sometimes that's a lot easier. But to have the Avos Yisrael to the guy who's in your Daled Amos, who for whatever reason it's lacking in that area, so that is the real inyan of Darkei Chassidus. So Lashana Tova, we should make the Cheshbon Nefesh Adaita the Nafshei. We were given V'chayus Nafsheinu. First we have to appreciate what that is. And then we have to make a Cheshbon Nefesh, okay, we've got it, what are we doing about it? And we should learn the Chassidus, we should live the Chassidus, and we should be zeich to all those inyanim that the Alter Rebbe wants, give a nachas ruach to the Alter Rebbe, give a nachas ruach to the Rebbeim, and through this we will be zeicha to the Iker Inyan of Shalom, that is the Inyan of the Sukkah Shalom Aleinu, that will be with the Skalos of Melech HaMashiach, and we'll have the Rebbe Malkeinu B'Rashenu, and be able to celebrate the Geula in a Pidiyah B'Shalom from the Galus with the Rebbe in Yerushalayim Merakoyish Meir V'Yom Amen.
Chaim, Chaim. As we know, one of the inyanim of Chassidus is, of course, Hashgacha Pratis, that the Baal Shem Tov was Mechadesh, and as the Rebbe has in the famous Kuntres, which is found in the Siches, in the back of the Sofas, but all the Shittas are the Shainim, until it came to the Alter Rebbe and the Baal Shem Tov before that everything in Dafka feel about Demons and Meher, and Chaim, and Daber, you have the name of Hashgacha Pratis, and as the language which is used, that a leaf doesn't go from the left to the right without the inyan of Hashgacha, which is from the very, very beginning of Machshava of Dumada'ak. A few years ago, I had the opportunity of being in Los Angeles. Don't remember, Ms. Tam was around Tavis time. And I was there for Shabbos. And Motzu Shabbos, there was Beryl Weiss, those you remember, very choshev Ingeman, who used to always have a famous Lava Malka, and a lot of people used to come, al Mishalochim, al guests, and you'd be mechabed. Anybody who had something to say would be mechabed to say something. Mefrat Motzu Shabbos to tell Sipur Tzadikim. And B'shas Maisa, someone told a story, and when the guy told the story, he says, "I feel nit ala Lubavitch's veis di Maisa." When he told the story, I certainly didn't know the story he told. And the story goes about the inyan of Kiddush Levana. Everyone knows the story. It's been told many times. The Rebbe sich kochen stark in the Maisa. That when the Alter Rebbe had to Mechadish Levana, when he had to go over the river there, so he asked the Goy to stop the boat, and the Goy, of course, didn't want to stop. So the Alter Rebbe sat down, or didn't get up Chatchila, and the boat couldn't go. So the Goy realized that without the Alter Rebbe telling the boat to go, it ain't going to go. So he said, "Okay, Rabbi, you can do what you want, say your prayers." The Alter Rebbe says, "No, I don't want to say the prayers now. I want you to start the boat. And then I will add." Then the Alter Rebbe and the guy at the boat started going. And then the Alter Rebbe asked the Goy, "Please stop, because I want to say Kiddush Levana." And then the Alter Rebbe went and he said the Kiddush Levana. And the Rebbe says that everything has to be done al B'derech HaTeva, and not an inyan of Mopsim, etc., etc. And therefore the Alter Rebbe did not want to do it when it was an inyan of Meifes. He wanted to do it when it was a regular situation, that the boat would stop B'derech Kol Adam Teva Ha'ilom. But if you think about it, the Alter Rebbe sat for Nun Gimel 53 days in prison. It was taken, I believe, it was Motzei Sukkis. So if that's the case, you have two Kiddush Levanas. You have Chedesh Cheshm, and you have Chedesh Kislev. Alter Rebbe was taken out Yud Tes. Yud Tes is always Kimat La'achar Sof Zman Kiddush Levana. So the story about the Kiddush Levana we know was only one. What about the second story? So the gentleman who told the story said as follows. In the times of the Rebbe Marash, the Rebbe Vaistois, the Rebbe Marash wanted to get a copy of a Maimer. And this Maimer was to be found in the library, in the archives in St. Petersburg, or another one of these national libraries. And he called in 2 or 3 Chassidim, and he said, "I want you guys to go to this and this library, and somehow I want to have, you should get me a copy of that Maimer." The Verstehtzer Chassidim went, and they get to the library, and they realized that one of the ways of getting to the thing, you have to speak to the head librarian, but I can give him up $1, a ruble, and eventually with that you'll be able to get the Maimer. So they went into the guy who was running the library, and they gave him a Shena Matbeah, and they told him, "We would like to take a few pages, not much, poor Pletach," how many pages it was. And of course, in Russia, jede Sache geht geschmiert, and the librarian said, "No problem, you can come." But one problem, the guy who's running all the libraries in Russia happens to be in town this week, and he's going to be here Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So please don't go into the library and do anything when this guy is here because I can lose my job and it'll see, etc., etc. So wait till this guy leaves, and when he leaves, then you can go in and take what you guys want. So eventually they waited till this fella Kavyochel had left, and on a day whenever day it was, they go into the library and they start looking through the different Bichlach Chassidus until they found what the Rebbe Marash had sent them to get. And they were about to walk out of the library, and the guy who is the Menayel of all the different libraries throughout Russia catches them in the act. And he says, where are you guys going with that sefer? That sefer state is gestempled, etc., etc. Where are you guys going? No, they realized that they were chapped, and they said that we come from the city of Lubavitch, and there's a big rabbi there, and he asked us to he wants to read what's in this book, and he asked us that we should bring it to him. So he said, what's the name of this rabbi that's in Lubavitch? So he says, his name is Schneerson. And this guy seemed to be quite an old individual. So he thinks back, Schneerson, Schneerson. Wasn't there a rabbi once upon a time by you who was called Shneur Zalman? So they look at this goy and they mamash the spol. How does he know there was a Rebbe called Shneur Zalman? And he says, yes, that this of Shmuel, the Rebbe, is a grandson, or great-grandson of this one who was Shneur Zalman. Oh, if that's the case, then you can take the Bichel and take it back to your Rebbe. So they looked at him astonishingly. Why should they be able to take the Sefer back? Because the Zayde Geis and the Shneur Zalman. So he says, I'll tell you the story. I was brought up in St. Petersburg, and I joined the army, Versteht. And I was made to be in charge. One of the jobs that I had was to watch the prisons. And I was in the prison, the Peter Paul prison, whatever it's called, when they took the Alter Rebbe and they brought him. And I was watching over him for many, many weeks. It wasn't that many weeks, I suspect, only 53 days, whatever it is. And one day, when I was bringing some food or other things to the Alter Rebbe, he said to me, I want to ask you a favor. I need to go out and I need to make a blessing on the moon. So tonight at 9 o'clock, could you let me out for 10-15 minutes? I want to say this blessing, and then afterwards I'll go back to my cell. So the God told him as follows, that I leave the prison at about 9:15, and there's a guy who comes to take over at 9:30. So I'll let you out at, let's say, 9 o'clock, and be back in the cell by 9:15. So when this other guy comes on his own problems, the guy should snitch on me, etc., etc., and you can say your tefillas, and everything can be fine and good. And the Alter Rebbe says to him, if you do this for me, I'll bench you, and I'll give you 3 things. Number 1, you'll live Arich Hashem V'Shanim. Number 2, you'll have an unbelievably good job all your life. And number 3, I don't remember. What was the 3rd thing? So, Kachave, that night he opened up the Alter Rebbe and he let the Alter Rebbe out at about 9 o'clock. And he goes home. No, the Alter Rebbe starts Kiddush Levoneh, 9 o'clock, 9:15, 9:30, 9:45, 10, 10:15, 10:30, and 10:45, the Alter Rebbe finishes saying Aleinu, and the minute the Alter Rebbe goes back to his prison cell, the guard who was supposed to come at 9:15 comes running in, mamish. He's breathing heavily like he's run hundreds of miles, and he's mamish puffing and huffing and huffing, and he mamish, and the Alter Rebbe sees us, a guy is hovering, yelling, and there was another guy standing around Nishvait who knew the whole story, and he asked this guy, weren't you supposed to be here at 9:15? Now it's 10:45. So he said, I'll tell you, a very strange thing happened to me tonight. I know this prison, from my house to this prison, the back of my hand. I know it, mamash, I do it every time. I've been doing it for who knows how many years. And I walked out of my house, then all of a sudden I take a look, I see I'm in the middle of a forest. And I go here and I go there, and I push it, And I keep on going, and I'm mamish, I can't recognize where I am, who I am, there's nobody around. Und gehe von einem Platz zum zweiten, ich bin ganz in Mischuhe, and I look at the clock, und sehe, es ist spät, es wird später. Finally, about the mamish, a few minutes before I came now, I meet a goy, a regular guy, and I say, can you tell me, how do I get to the prison? He says, very simple, go down the road over there, make a left, and go to the prison. So I started running with all my keches, and here I got. And this goy is telling these three chassidim. And the Alter Rebbe then gave me a bracha that number one, I should have a nichashama vishonim, and number two, I should have an excellent job. And 2 or 3 days after the Alter Rebbe gave me the bracha, they called me in and they said they see that I'm an honest guy, and as a result of that, they want to make me the head of all the libraries throughout the Soviet, also Russia. So therefore, if your Rebbe is a great grandson of this Rebbe, you can go take the Sefer and don't worry about it, and everything will turn out wie es darf zu sein. That's the Meister that he told then. I had not heard it before. Bei uns in Sforim steht es nicht, I don't think it's written, aber gar nicht. That's the Meister he told. A second Meister, which of course the Rebbe spoke, wrote a letter of Ichtav Kloli about, which in extension to what Rabbi Johnson said before, the Indian of Abbas Yisrael, that the Alter Rebbe was sitting downstairs, the Mittler Rebbe was sitting upstairs, and the Mittler Rebbe's son was in a vegela, and he was lying in bed, and all of a sudden he fell out, and he started to cry. And the Mittler Rebbe, because he was so immersed in learning whatever he was learning, didn't hear the baby cry, but the Alter Rebbe downstairs did hear the kid crying, and he went upstairs, and he put the baby back in the vegela, and he started to shake him up a bit, to push him a bit, so he should go back to sleep. And then at that's the Mittler Rebbe, that how come you didn't hear the child crying? And he said to him that afilo, you're immersed in the greatest inyonim of Chassidus, etc., etc., daf men hern, the koil yeled boiche, you have to hear the cry of this child. Steltmans of the Kasher, Chassidim used to ask that l'chura taka, why did the Alter Rebbe hear it and the Mittler Rebbe didn't hear it? And the answer is, well, our Rebbe is not eine per generation. So therefore, the Rebbe, the Nossi Hadoir, hears every single thing that happens. B'chol Hadoir Gansen. Masheng, the Mittler Rebbe at that time was still not the Rebbe. So therefore, as a result of that. But the Rebbe in the letter, and then later in the different sichas the Rebbe spoke about this, says that the Inyan, that the Alter Rebbe, with all the Iluyim that we know about the Alter Rebbe, and we know what the Rebbe Rashab said, that Volte Givem Bizmanu Ameiroim, Volte Givem an Ameire, Volte Givem Bizman Neviim, he would be a Novi, V'chulu, V'chulu, and the Alter Rebbe said, you don't even know where my gate in Gan Eden is all about. And the godless of the Alter Rebbe, the Tzemach writes, the Chilevischen Chuln and Kotsche, and yet the Alter Rebbe was able to hear the cry of every single child, whatever that child is. And as we saw it by all the Rabbeim, that this Inyan of being able to be sensitive to every single person, B'chol, Ho'elam, Kuli, whatever darga that person is, the person can be Mamish Poshe Yisrael Mit Allah Hidurim. And just recently, it was Nizgala, maybe other people knew it before, that those people know a little about Russian history, know that one of Stalin, Yamach Shemoy's henchmen was a guy by the name of Kaganovich. I think he shot his parents and got his brothers, he also shot. Mamas, you can't get any greater Russia if you ever want to find one. But normally, you won't find such Rishoyim. And there was a Rav who was going to Russia, and the Rebbe said that this Kaganovich is still alive. Maybe we should go and speak to him and try to be Mekarev. So this Rav told the Rebbe, "Shan anel tereit." So the Rebbe said, "Yes." So was the Pshat said, "Anel tereit." So when the Rav walked out of Yechidus, he thought to himself, "This is an unbelievable thing." You talk about someone who is so weit, and the Rebbe died. As I feel Alshenbach, going up north, but the Rebbe died. I feel of Azasorti. So therefore, that Indian, as we saw by Miftzah Tefillin, the alle Sachen that the Rebbe bechod, there wasn't a single Yid that the Rebbe didn't think about, v'chulu, v'chulu, v'chulu. So therefore, we, as Chassidim of the Alter Rebbe, the Indian, that I mentioned many times, it's a very important thing, that the Meile of Neshamas Yisrael, and Kochen sich in the Meile of Neshamas Yisrael, is one of the things you only find by the Baal Shem Tov and Talmidov. You go through all the Rishonim, not that I've gone through many of them, but you go through, look at the Ramban and Kuzri and Chavez Alvovis, you won't see too much about the Meile of Neshamas Yisrael. Where do you have the Koch? In Chelek Elikami Mal, and the Alter Rebbe is not happy with the Chelek Elikami Mal, it has its Mamosh. And therefore every single Yid, whatever the Yid may be, it has to be, Mamash has been Ahavas Yisrael, as the Alter Rebbe is in Perek Lev, Tanya, everybody knows what Chassidim, what the Yin of Ahavas Yisrael, the Rebbe was Mekar, people who are Mamash, biggest enemies. Nafal Pikei, das given the Uft of Alter Rebbe, Chassidim is a Mishpoche, and the Yin of Ahavas Yisrael, and to care about every single Yid, and to think about every single Yid, and to do it, not just think about it. Thinking about it is very nice, you can think about it today till tomorrow. Of a Pashat help and begashmi as every single Yid. I was reminded of a story that in last week's video we put up in Shul. So sitting behind the Rebbe, those of you who saw, was Kazanovsky and Shmuel Dachtzach and Simpson. And then in the middle there's an ungehackte Jew, which I suspect many of you don't know. And geheißen that Tzaddik Scheingarten. How do I know this Tzaddik Scheingarten? Because one of the guys who used to eat by my parents, Aleim HaSholem, Tatas Yotzad, is Freitag, I'm on Lichting Gan Eden, and this guy used to come eat by us. And his Mesadik, and then eventually he was an alter bocher, finally got married, and this Tzaddik Scheingarten was Mesadik Yiddush, and I got spice, I met him then. So I once asked Label, this guy comes to every Farbrengen. All right, his wife, I think, taught him for many, many years. But by every Farbrengen he was there, and I mean, he's wearing a Siddish Levush, but the guy was a Litvak, 100%, even a Litzvish, a minion, everything else. So Label says, I'll tell you why he comes to every Farbrengen. Tovshin Yud Gimel, Tovshin Yud Dalet. He opened the Stiebel in Borough Park. And said, Nishigangen, some people, you don't have the success. So someone told me, you know what? How can you, how can you make sure that people should come to your minion? So he goes into the Rebbe, and the Rebbe, being a pragmatist of the highest order, asks a very, very simple kasha. The Rebbetzin git kugel and scholt noch davenen? So he says, no. So the Rebbe says, well, given a gleiche Sache, als noch davenen, soll der Rebbetzin geben scholt mit kugel, und mir zu Shem de Minyonen along him gehen. And the guy still has other Yeman says, I don't know if his wife, hope she's still around, aber me git kugel, and from that day on, the guy had Minyonen all the time. So Label told me it didn't stop there. Then the Rebbe told me that every week I should send him a check for $50. Now $50 in 1953 was a lot of money. And the Rebbe sent him for years, every single week. And no one knew about it. So als HaKoras HaTev, fängt kommen zu Farbrengen. Das ist eine Story, Echad Minei 11 Alofim. Aber der weite zu trachten, wenn jeden Jeden nicht noch mit geben Eitzes. Everybody can give Eitzes, it's very cheap to give Eitzes. But it's a chasm, check every single week and push it and think about how you can help another Yid. And the inyan of Ahavas Yisrael is to trachten eitzes. How is it possible to actually go ahead? And just to finish with one more story, was Gebert Vetter. Inyan Limud Achsidus, as we all know, and never spoken to Kinyanishul Man and Kundus in my Kinyanishul Teres Achsidus, Ados Yechidushe B'Teirah. That the Rosen, the Rosen, and Primus at and Kabbalah and everything else of Chassidus is Oila al Kulona and every single Mailam and Matzah possible. So, Labor once told me that it reached to such a madrege that when the Rebbe used to get a new Maimer, let's say a Maimer came, which the Rebbe hadn't seen before, and someone sent it to him, Russia, Kisriyad, or whatever it is. So he said for the next few hours after the Rebbe got the Maimer, it was impossible to talk to him and to get anything if he wanted to communicate. He said the Rebbe gave in an andere Welt completely. It took hours until the Rebbe El came down and became Zogan Doisius. They came down, Poshet El Mazagashmi. Said the Rebbe was about a different world completely. And no matter how many times Leibel went in and it proved he saw that Rebbe just walked back and forth holding the ksav. And it was unbelievable what Chassidus is all about. So therefore, the inyan of Limud HaChassidus, Batog and Banacht and Shabbos and Yom Tiv is something which every single young man and every single bocher, which the whole inyan of Temchet Tmimim was, of course, the Limud HaChassidus. And once upon a time it was only for young Leiden that Rebbe made for bocherim, and the Rebbe for everybody, that every single individual has to learn B'chol Yom V'Yom Chassidus, has to live in Chassidus, and has to be internalized all of the things that he learned. And as Leibish Moshe said, a very, very important point, it changes your whole perspective and outlook on life, which we're living in an age of unbelievable nisyanis. I don't know in the last few hundred years till we had the nisyanis that people have today. And all in Yonim, you just have to walk around the school and look around what kids of 14 and 15 and 16. As von alle Seiten, it's an unbelievable, and sometimes it's not an easy thing. And the only way, as what the Rebbe said in Sikha, that it is about the Keser HaMelech, to take this Keser HaMelech, the jewel of the Keser HaMelech, and Efshet HaRangen, ein Trop, zwei Trop, and that is able to save and to actually bring Amazon Zecha Zayin to send this Galus von Rebbe mit Mashiach Tzidkenu B'Korah Mamash.
That's it.